Hi, I'm Mr. Trowbridge, and today we're going to talk about electric cars versus gasoline. We got two bad cars here, the Tesla Model 3 and the Camaro ZL1. Has anybody ever ridden in the Camaro ZL1? Man, I want to. Tell me what it's like. Anyway, where does all energy come from? It takes energy to move these cars. Well, all energy starts, at least on the earth, it all starts from the sun. Believe it or not, that's where it all comes from. The sun, for an electric car, the sun creates temperature differences in the air, which creates wind. And when we put up wind turbines, those blades catch the wind, they turn, and they turn turbines up in the top of that windmill, and that creates electricity directly from the wind. Then let's talk about some fossil fuels. Well, fossil fuels, that's where gasoline comes from. It starts with living matter like trees. All the carbon in this eventually deteriorates and falls to the ground and gets into the ground, and it creates oil and natural gas. That's another fossil fuel over millions of years. But to get to these fossil fuels, and you can also make electricity from fossil fuels, we have to drill down to the earth. There you have a drill derrick, and it goes down sometimes for miles into the earth. And when it hits oil, sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it's a huge waste of money. But when it does, that oil is pulled out by a pump jack. Once it's pulled out, it needs to be refined. It can either needs to be cleaned somewhat if it's natural gas, but if it's oil, it has to be refined a lot like the refinery, the still that makes Grandpa's whiskey. It's the same idea with oil. You heat it up, and at various temperatures, certain things come off of it. And one of those things is gasoline. And when it turns into gasoline, it's taken to the gas stations where you put it in your cars. You know all about that. Now, back to electricity. Electricity is a very easily produced energy. We can produce it from burning all sorts of things. We produce it essentially, let's go back a little bit. We produce it essentially from steam, right? It takes heat to make steam, but once that steam is made, it's forced into turbines that turn the turbines, and that generates electricity. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. Making the heat to make the steam. You can do it from many, many different sources. You can do it from oil. You can do it from coal. You can do it from natural gas. You can do it from the sun. You can do it from nuclear energy. But also, as you saw earlier, electricity can be produced directly from nature. We can produce it directly from the wind. My cat is screaming, man. We got a cat fight going on outside. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, yeah. Problem solved. So you can also produce it directly from the sun in terms of solar cells. So there are all kinds of different ways to make electricity. But if we look, we're talking about gasoline. It has to come from oil, and it has to come out of the ground. So it's very limited in that source. Back to electricity. Once that electricity is produced, it's wired to a charging station, and that's how you charge a car. But you can also charge a car from electricity at home, believe it or not. Did you know that? An electric car? How handy is that? Now, once that electricity is produced, how does the car store it? In a Tesla, well, in any electric car, they store it in these little batteries, just like very similar to the AA batteries you use in your toys. It's pretty cool, but it's a far larger scale. If we look down here at the car image below, see that gray, that metallic area there where all the car seats normally go? That's where the batteries are. And there are 1,441 of these bad boys in the Tesla Model 3. That makes for over a ton of weight. No, I'm sorry, over half a ton of weight. 1,000 pounds, over 1,000 pounds of weight at the bottom of a car, like a Tesla. These red things here, these are the electric motors. And when we talk about a car, the energy is stored in gasoline, right? That gasoline is stored in a tank below the car. You know about that, I'm sure. I'm not telling you anything you don't know there. Now, let's look at this. This is really cool. In an electric motor, there are two main parts in an induction motor, like those used in electric cars. The rotor, right there. This is what goes around and around. This is what spins, rotor. And the stator, it stays in one place, doesn't move. So this rotor turns inside this stator. What turns the rotor? Well, it's electricity. When electricity is applied to this stator, there are coils of wire in it. And it produces an electromagnetic field by. You'll learn about this when you get older. It's really cool, but we'll keep it simple. That electromagnetic field turns the rotor with incredible force. It's very efficient, very powerful, and very simple. Down below here, we've got an assembled electric motor, but they cut out the side of it. They cut out the stator so that you can see inside. That red thing there is the rotor. That's what has the mojo. That's what turns and makes all the force in this electric motor. So let's go back to the gasoline engine. Look at this. This is called an exploded view. It looks exploded. There are over 700 parts in this thing. Over 700 parts in the average V8 engine. Very complicated, very highly machined parts. Takes a lot of time and energy and money to make these things. And when it's assembled, it looks like this. It's, to me, a thing of beauty. Maybe not to you guys yet, but this thing screams. This is a really high performance gasoline engine. But that being said, what do you know about parts? The more parts you have, the more complexity. When you have complexity, there are more chances for error, the more chances for failure. So the more complex things are, the more chances of failure and less reliability. Look at the electric motor. Two basic parts here, drastically more efficient setup. What comes out of these things? Well, look at the tailpipe here. Well, wait a minute. There's no tailpipe in an electric car. There are no emissions in this thing. Now, the pollution made to generate the energy to move this car is made, the pollution is made at the power plant. I'm not saying it doesn't produce pollution, but it does it indirectly. And I can tell you that the electrical energy produced to turn this car is far more efficiently produced than the energy to move this car. The energy to move this car is burned, it's combusted. And when you burn things, you make pollution. The pollution comes out of the tailpipes, and it forms, parts of that pollution form what's called the Denver brown cloud. You've seen it. This is where it comes from. It comes from cars and sun reacting with the pollution of the cars. So two very different things. This is a very clean car compared to a very, well, This is a lot cleaner than they used to be, but it still produces pollution. So we talked about a lot of things here, but we compared an electric car to a gasoline car. We looked at where the energy comes from to move this electric car versus where the energy comes from to move this gas car. I love both of these cars. They're both awesome vehicles. One produces, it moves more efficiently than the other. This electric car has 3 times the efficiency utilizing the energy to move it than this hot sports car. It's amazing. Electric engines, electric motors are 3 times more efficient at harnessing energy to move them than the average internal combustion engine car. And also, let's look at the electric car again. Where's the weight? The weight is at the bottom of the car, so it's inherently more stable. These are a lot of fun to drive because of that. The weight's distributed underneath. I can turn corners on this thing that this high-powered car couldn't do because the engine in the ZL1 is in the front. Yeah, so that's a lot of weight in the front of the car where it should be distributed equally among all 4 tires to make a more stable design. I'm not going to badmouth it because it still handles great. They've designed around it, but this is inherently more stable. The electric car is inherently more stable than the internal combustion engine. And what else do we need to talk about? Oh, charging. You know what? Charging an electric car is a drag. It's like charging your cell phone. What do? It usually takes all night to charge, doesn't it? It's slow. That's a drawback for this car. With the internal combustion engine, man, you just pull up to a gas station, put the nozzle in 10 minutes, you're fueled up, then you pay your money and you motor. It's so much easier than an electric car. So there are pluses and minuses to both of them. And when you sum it all up, what do you like better? It's your call. Let's talk about it later on. We'll see you soon.